when you get into a foreign country, you have far less control over their laws than you do in your own. But certainly I would recommend, as far as our input goes, as far as what this country can do, is as much protection for our own embassy people as we can possibly provide to guard against it. And then, of course, I think the strongest diplomatic protest is what's required. But how we go beyond that, I simply don't know. But I do think we need to review our whole safety procedures with our own embassy people abroad to see that they are given maximum protection. Perhaps the UN could do something effective in this area. Certainly it seems to me they ought to try, but I haven't been too happy with their success in bringing, in solving these problems.
In all of our new programs now, a great deal relates directly to data processing and the information division, which, as you know, houses the report section and the communications section, and planning and research. And by grouping all three of these divisions under one command, we feel like the coordination and the cooperation that's desperately needed within all of those divisions, working closely together, will be achieved by this arrangement much more effectively than previous arrangements.
From what I read in the newspaper, the request for the Dallas Police Department is something like $100 a month per person. If we're going to keep up with the request or the salaries of the Dallas Police Department, well, then we will have to increase the salaries of our police officers $100 a month, and this would be approximately $250,000 for the remainder of the year. To a administrator type or a manager type of government, then I guess we'll just have to struggle along.
Commissioner Dick Anderson says he hopes to use the delay of today's motion to negotiate some sort of settlement in the dispute between Commissioners Keith Richardson and County Auditor Jack Benson. Benson refuses to certify a 6% salary increase that was approved for county employees 2 weeks ago. Commissioners Punch Wright and Anderson were absent from the meeting at which that increase passed. And Richardson refuses to rescind that increase. The County Employees Union is threatening a lawsuit, and the situation is coming to a boil. I asked Commissioner Anderson what sort of compromise he hoped to bring about.
I have asked Mr. Benson for a preview of some of the expenditures and a review of some of the budgets in individual departments to see if there wasn't enough money available to give perhaps a 3 or 4% increase the 1st of September, and then make up the balance the 1st of the year, where it wouldn't be a burden on our tax structure.
Will any sort of compromise at all be viewed as a victory for Benson over Richardson, for example?
I hope no one takes this controversy on a personal level.
Can you foresee any circumstance under which they wouldn't take it on a personal level?
I certainly hope not. After all, we're paid by the public to do a conscientious job, to make reasonable decisions, and to use our good judgment. And I would hope that no decision on this course is based on personalities.
The controversy should be settled at next week's meeting, but it's anybody's guess as to who will wind up unhappy. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
Dave Witzel is a Cowboy now. He comes to Dallas following 3 years with Detroit, 4 years with Chicago, and 5 years with the New Orleans Saints. Dave Witzel is a free safety. He's now playing behind Cornell Green and Mel Renfro, and he rather likes that idea.
Well, it's just super because it's like playing with in a Pro Bowl or something, because both Mel and Cornell are thought of as probably two of the finest cornerbacks there are in pro football, and then when you throw in linebackers like Holly and Leroy Jordan and Fuzzy there, why that's like being in the Pro Bowl. And then you add linemen like George Andre and Bob Lilly and Larry Cole and Jethro Pugh. That's like being in the Pro Bowl. And so really it's like playing on an all-star team, and it's it's a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I think that I'm definitely going to help this club someplace.
Dave, you had thought about retirement. Would you have gone ahead and gone out of football this year unless the trade had been made?
I think so. I'd played 12 years, and I had nothing to be ashamed of, and I just didn't particularly get along with Coach Fears, and we just didn't see eye to eye on a couple of things, and so I told him that, that the only place that I would absolutely go would be Dallas, and so when Coach Landry called me, he said, well, Dave, he said, I've got a chance to trade for you, but he said, I want to make absolutely sure that you still want to play. And I said, well, that's your team is the only team I want to play with. I said, it's an outstanding football team. I think it'll go all the way to the Super Bowl, and I want to play another 2 or 3 years anyway. And I said, I understand that you're looking for a free safety, and I said, I think I can fill the bill. And if you want to make the trade, why, I'll give it the best shot I got.
Dave Witzel is 34 years of age right now. Matter of fact, his teammates on the Cowboys are kidding him about being the man who will most benefit from the recent pension plan agreement between the owners and players. Cowboy officials will be quite satisfied if they can get 1, if not 2 and 3 more good years out of him. This is Vern Lundquist, Channel 8 Sports, Thousand Oaks, California.
On our 1970-71 budget, we call for an increase of $283,000.
Mr. Moffitt, how much of a tax increase do you need to operate the city for this coming year?
In proposing this budget, this amount of money will have to come from a 31-cent tax increase. This has been called due to the fact that our sales tax has failed to pass on 2 different occasions when it was called for a vote. We had hoped that this tax rate would not be required, but due to the circumstances, this is the only way that we can maintain our budget and continue to progress.
In '64, I won our state intermediate championship down in Brownsville, and right after that, I went into men's classes, and I really started practicing a whole lot then, because I wasn't but 18, and I was wanting to compete with them, and I started shooting a whole lot so I could, and I got along pretty good there real quick, and then about 2 years after that, say about '66 is when my score really came up and I really started shooting okay.
And in '68 you won the national championship, and in '69 and again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are there any more worlds for you to conquer?
Well, there's a lot of them really. We have a international indoor tournament at Detroit. It's been held at Cobo Hall in Detroit for the last few years, and that's a money shoot. It's $10,000 money shoot. And then there's going to be one at Las Vegas, be a $20,000 money shoot. And I'd kind of like to get my hands on some of that.
Did you do this thing like William Tell did, or Robin Hood? Is it possible to split an arrow like they did? Or
I've got one arrow inside of another one at the house.
You have?
I've done it over at Bronco. We're shooting league tournaments over there. Shot one in the target, and I put my other one right in the end of that. It happens. It happens. Often, not real often. That's the first one I've ever done. Probably my last too.
Well, I think this government's going to have to determine whether it's safe to have American citizens in those countries. I think I think at some point somebody's going to have to wrestle with the problem, the administration, the people in charge of our foreign affairs, as to whether you can have diplomatic relations if the lives of your people are not protected. And I think this is what it fundamentally boils down to.
In the long run, if it continued, would you be in favor of dropping diplomatic relations?
Well, I think if people, American citizens, couldn't go there with reasonable safety, certainly I would be in favor of considering that step. But without, knowing I think it'd be pretty hard to get volunteers to go there anyway, too, as a matter of fact, if it gets worse than, a sporadic individual.
I think we're going to find that the police think better of the police than the police think that they do.
And what about the public? Do you have any specifics that you would like to, that you think may be verified?
Well, one thing that we know is an awful lot of people don't know very much about the police because their only association with them has been, let's say, through a traffic violation. And so they don't know very many good things about them either. And what we think is that people tend to think of police as a block. They don't see them as individuals. And we'd like to have them see the policeman as individual.
Well, I feel that the functional arrangement, has not been such that would give us the very maximum level of efficiency. And I feel that with this new arrangement, that the functions will be better related and better coordinated by this arrangement.
What we need in county government is a management type. We need a manager to decide what the needs are and what the priorities are.
What are you going to do without a manager? Just try to cope with these people and start turning down more and more requests as you did this morning?
Well, we're going to have to spend more time to find out what the real needs are and what their priorities are.
Lieutenant Evans, can you tell us what happened here? This time, all I can tell you is that one car was going the wrong way on the Loop 35W, and that we have 5 people involved, and we're getting them to the hospital as quick as we can.
hardships that this probably will put on the people of Stevens County, and especially the ranchers whose acreage was burned?
Well, it's certainly brought a hardship on these people who lost all the grass they've had. They're either going to have to go to feeding, that's going to mean several months of high feed bill, or they're going to have to sell, one or the other.
Is this one of the worst fires that you've had here in Stevens County during this fire season, if we could call it that, the dry months?
Yes, sir, this is the largest thing we've had this year.
Well, I think the crux of the problem is an article that was written in Sunday's Times Herald, which is entitled Criminals' Rights, and discusses examining trials and such as that. You're brought to trial, and not knowing anything about what you're charged with, you're really unable to defend yourself.
I have to, because he won't take it to me, and I know it. I got that in my mind. Curtis Cole will never take the fight to no one unless he hurt him. But me, I don't think he will hurt. He will be the one that will get hurt. And like I read in the newspaper this morning, that if he don't make it this time, he will retire. So I would think that this will be his retirement, because he ain't gonna go past this bridge.
Well, the real danger of the logs is to boaters that are not watching. If a boater traveling at a high rate of speed were to hit one of these logs, it could possibly damage his bow or his hull or damage his prop. If he were traveling at a higher rate of speed, he might be thrown out of the boat into the water, and then we have all types of problems that could occur.
Tell me this, is there any way to get all the logs out of this lake?
Well, I think so. Considering that our rough estimate is 600 or 700 logs in the lake, if we had 100 boats out here, it wouldn't take too many apiece to rid the lake entirely of the logs.
But even if there are some logs still left in the lake, good water safety should be the rule anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. And given a number of months with the lake continuing to rise, the natural wind action would take care of moving the logs over the shore. But what we're trying to do is hasten that and eliminate any possibility for anybody getting hurt out here.
Boating is really fun, but it's no fun if you have to cope with logs like these. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Jess Brown in Heath.
Chief Mays, do you know what caused the fire here in Stevens County?
No, sir, I don't know for sure what caused the fire, but I do feel like it was a set job. I feel like there's arson involved here in this place.
Why do you believe that arson was involved?
Well, the simple reason is it caught in about 3 or 4 places at the same time, just a few minutes difference, and you just don't have that to happen. Some bottles of stuff along the highways. It was burning in 4 different places when we arrived on the scene.
What's wrong with the headline or the article, Criminals' Rights?
Well, people that are charged with crime are supposed to be presumed to be innocent. And we don't do that. We presume people to be guilty once they're charged. They have a right, according to the legislature, to an examining trial. Now, if you get an indictment before that, that's waived. You don't get it.
We believe that this will give the citizens of Dallas a tangible opportunity to express their support of our fine chief and his department as well as the other departments of the city.
The results of the study be made public to the public so that they know what you know about your department now?
Yes, these results should be made known to the public and to the officers as well, because this will be a survey which should determine how the public feels about the officer and how the officer feels about the public, how the officer feels about himself, and hopefully we'll uncover some things that can be corrected, bringing about a better relationship between public and police.
We had this house under surveillance for quite some time. About 2 o'clock this morning, we made a raid on the house and picked up these drugs known as speed. The parties in the house had bought the speed and put it up in the individual capsules themselves. We made an arrest of 7 persons, and 1 was a juvenile. These persons are in jail at this time, And we feel that this was one of our major suppliers of this community, if not the major supplier of drugs.
Chief.
The Justice Department has filed lawsuits against 26 more Texas school districts, this time including Garland and Richardson. The lawsuits, which are signed by Attorney General John Mitchell and 4 other Justice Department officials, were filed in the court of U.S. District Judge Joey Estes in Dallas. The suits allege racially discriminated schools, that is, schools identifiably attended by all black. In this case, the Richardson School of Hamilton Park. We talked to Mr. Clarence Mills, who lives in this district. He told me they've already had 3 of their children go through this school without incident and have another attending now. It's his opinion the Justice Department, the Richardson School District, or whoever just go away, put things back like they were, and leave the people alone. They are not unhappy and do not feel they're being racially discriminated against. The suits allege that the schools have not adequately desegregated their students and faculty. Dr. Stanley McCaleb, the president of the Richardson School District, said he would have no comment until the first of the week. That's when their attorney, Mr. Henry Aiken, and others will view the suit personally. We got the same response from Garland School Superintendent Glenn Couch, who said he would have no comment until the suit could be studied by their attorney, Mr. Earl Luna. The suits did not ask that federal funds to the schools be cut off, as is the usual action taken by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Both school districts expect to be formally served by U.S. Marshals sometime Monday. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
We're asking for $6 million to be raised throughout the nation, only $1 million of that in Texas. And I think everyone who has any understanding whatsoever of the suffering, the tragedy, the loss as a result of these hurricanes are going to respond generously. Because you just have to see it one time to realize how important it is that people reflect the compassion which I know they feel.
but he's been real outstanding. He's had great concentration on the receiver, which is probably the most important thing in covering a receiver, especially for a rookie coming out of college. It's probably the toughest thing for him to make him do is to concentrate on that receiver.
Of course, again, the intangibles. Harris has looked good against the passes of Dick Fawcett and Ken Bailey, but he has not had to contend with the strikes of Morton and Staubach, nor has he had to cover the likes of Rensel and Hayes. He's a long shot, but he looks like a comer, another free agent who might make it. So you might want to remember the name. Cliff Harris, number 11, a free agent from Ouachita State in Arkansas. This is Vern Lundquist, Channel 8 Sports, Thousand Oaks, California. What happened in the city of Detroit on Tuesday evening was 7:30, 1/2 hour before the polls closed. We ran our accuracy test in our 6 computer sites, and in 5 of the 6 centers, that test failed. It failed from this standpoint, that in these 5 centers, we kept noticing on our printouts that we were getting 1 too many votes for 1 candidate in a particular office. So we had to go back through the entire scheme to find out and isolate why we were getting this condition. Once we accomplished this, which took approximately 3 hours, so that now we were into 11 o'clock, we then had to take this correction problem back through 5 out of the 6 computer centers so that we could start processing precincts at the time.